Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparuta de sangamata satavaraye sodavanta Amunjantu Satan. So this evening is our last evening reflection. I don't like to call them talks, because what I'm trying to do is reflect, to point, not to inform and teach you anything, but encourage. In this path, we need encouragement, because it's easily delude ourselves through our thinking process, and by thinking about it and our ability to meditate, or have we gotten anywhere or haven't gotten anywhere, or is this useful or not. Some people disrobe because they haven't gotten anywhere after so many years of trying to get somewhere. So why is that? That's the thinking mind, isn't it? I am somebody who should have gotten somewhere or didn't get anywhere. And then you look at that in the present. What is that? It's sankhara, and a sankhara is. And what is it that knows a sankhara? Is buddho, is awareness. Trust that awareness. That's the path, really. Whether you've developed samadhi, whether you're a good meditator, whether you feel you've gotten somewhere, or you're not getting anywhere, or doubts about Buddhism, or about the teacher, or about the monastery, these are all conditioned phenomena. And the Buddha his teaching is to know conditioned phenomena, not believe in it and attach to it. So this is what sati sampajanya panya is the ability to know things as they are. So in three refuges in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, this is taking refuge in buddho, in the awareness, awakened consciousness. Is just a simple paying attention. And then the Buddha points out how we're conditioned to grasp, strong views and perceptions. That's the avijja, the ignorance of Dhamma. Then that's what we do. We just grasp various religious views, political views, social identities. And of course then the result is that there's always a separation, this sense of I'm on the right, you're on the left, and I'm Theravada, you're Mahayana, that kind of thing. When we think like that, and we believe it, You notice there's a sense of, having an opposition, something different than ourselves, is a kind of threat or something alien. But when we're mindful and we're aware, if we have such thoughts, such viewpoints, such opinions, that they are what they are, I'm on the right side and you're on the wrong side, I'm thinking that. I think with my mind, I'm right, you're wrong. One of the problems in the holy life, in any religion, is righteous views, because we know what's right through conditioning, and what's wrong when we grasp the viewpoints, and we're not mindful, we're not aware of the grasping. So we tend to take very righteous positions about my religion is the right one, and anyone that doesn't agree is wrong. So this leads to religious bigotry and an ability to understand or comprehend anything other than your particular narrow viewpoint, your particular position that you take. So I call that righteous view, because maybe it is. Maybe somebody's religion is better than mine. I don't know. But this is what I've used, and this is what I've done, and devoted my life to, and a good result from it. I don't have any doubts or problems with, especially because it's through this Theravada school that I've developed. It's not always you like everything within the tradition, or you agree with everything, but even one's disagreements are still conditioned phenomena. Now we oftentimes, righteous view comes from we should keep the 5 precepts. If you're a good Buddhist, you keep the 5 precepts, you give dana, and then you should meditate. So it's all this sense of you as an individual should develop dana, sila, bhavana. Now this is a sequence I found quite, it's simple enough. Three stages: dana, sila, bhavana, and they, you reflect on dana as an encouragement rather than a command. So dana, according to the traditional Theravada scripture, is free will offerings. It's not forced. You're not intimidating people into offering things or being generous. You're encouraging. So dana is a kind of foundation for Buddhist practice, because it helps to deal with selfishness, wanting to keep our things for ourselves, wanting to hoard up wealth and conditions just for one's own. And dana is like generosity. It's done from the joy of giving, because giving, sharing what you have with others is joyful. And that you can find out, don't believe me, but observe, like when you give food to the Sangha, there's a sense of giving something that you've made or purchased to somebody else that you respect. What is the result of giving like that? Do you notice when the lay community that is so generous here? Are you aware of the result of free will offerings? If they want something back, then the joy dies. If you're doing it to get something in return. So that's why true dana is the act of free will giving because it's to the sangha, to the poor, whatever, to charities. and when I see that in myself, the act of giving, a sense of joy arises. I witness that. And that's one of the factors of enlightenment. Joy is a part of the human life experience. And what brings joy so we're aware of it, sometimes we experience it without fully appreciating or reflecting on it, observing it. Knowing what in life brings joy and what doesn't, like just thinking of myself, selfishness, there's no joy in that. When I start thinking of myself and above everyone else, then there's something very unpleasant, kind of a sense of being smothered in selfishness. It's not a joyful aramana. So the Buddha placed dana as a foundation, the first step, because even if you can't keep sila, you can at least be generous. So it's some very righteous people say to be a Buddhist you have to keep the 5 precepts. No, even one who gives dana, you call yourself a Buddhist. Let's not be righteous about this. So in Thailand, for example, which is the cultural attitudes of Thai are very integrated with Theravada Buddhism. So in just even the poorest villages, people are generous to the Sangha when we go on Bindabat. And they find great joy in that. And people that won't come to the monastery to give dana can give it as bhikkhus walk through a village. You see, so it makes it easily available. So this is part of a tradition, a culture that is integrated with the Theravada Buddhism. So, but to threaten, you say, if you don't give dana, you'll go to hell. That's not it. What I'm saying is, dana is done from something good in yourself, a generosity that comes from you, not because if you aren't generous and you're selfish, you'll go to hell. This is to contemplate the difference, reflect on the difference, between the kind of reward and punishment conditioning of our culture, of our society in the West, and the Theravada, according to the Pali scriptures, it's an act of giving, of sharing, of coming forth, encouraging, rather than demanding, threatening, or intimidating. So then the second is sila, and then we've got this is about sila is the next stage to maturity, where we begin to see the need to be responsible for what we do, what we say. Otherwise, we say, I have freedom of speech, I can say anything I want, and I'm free to say anything. Whether you're upset by it, that's your problem. And I believe in absolute free speech. Is the Western view of many of us. But taking responsibility for speech is part of sila. It's being aware of how to use speech to encourage, to describe, to be accurate. And then the actions, we still, we have impulses of anger, hatred, wanting to take revenge, wanting to hurt somebody. We have sexual drive in the human body that has its natural energies that influence our way we react to each other. So if we don't take responsibility for action, then of course we just follow instinct, impulses, the feeling of the moment. It gets completely out of control. So the 5 precepts is the standard in this tradition. So the first is to not intentionally kill any human being, at least. With this, it's not to. For bhikkhus, we're not allowed to kill anything, not even a mosquito. But for lay people, the main emphasis is not to intentionally kill another human being. Banadibata viramani sikabadang samadhiyami. So that is something, that just think if everybody in the world, on the planet at this time, just took the first precept, that would be the end of war. And I'm not talking about not taking life of fish and birds and cows and pigs, but just take the vow, banadibata, everybody took that precept, that would be the end of war. But you know that at a peace conference, there's nothing that nobody takes the first precept. They're all talking about peace, how nice it would be, why we should end war. But in the first precept of the 5, it's a clear statement, not to, with intention. Sometimes, we're responsible for the death of somebody else, it's not our intention. And who knows the intention, What is it that knows? Sometimes we feel like killing. At least I have. And it's not something, because of the first precept, I never do it. But it is a sankhara, just like everything else. And if one is developing, say, bhavana, then you begin even desire to kill somebody is seen in terms of sankhara. You can still feel that. The perception might arise, but the knowing, the sati sampajanya, knows it is what it is, and it's non-personal, it's anatta. Whereas a person, as a bhikkhu, as a Buddhist monk, I would tend to feel guilty about having such a feeling of wanting to kill somebody after 50 years of meditation. a personality would create guilt because it's personal, where the wisdom, the panya, knows it is sankhara, arising, ceasing. And it's something you don't do, you don't act on it. So this is, a panya knows sankhara, the personality doesn't. It's judgmental, it's righteous, it's moralistic. It makes you feel guilty because not all your thoughts are good or pure. The personality does that because it's based on avijja, on conditioning. And the conditioning is through the thinking process, through perception and thinking. This is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. It's not about that right and wrong, good or bad are sankharas, conditions. It's about grasping what absolute right, absolute wrong, absolute good, absolute bad. So this is like investigating the reality of being human is bhavana, or meditation. So the 5 precepts are like in the Vinaya, the monastic Vinaya, we're not allowed to give the precepts unless asked, so we can't go standing on the street corners in London kind of threatening people with the fires of hell if they don't keep the 5 precepts, or even trying to convince them. So the ideal, the ideal of the samana is harmlessness and conduct in a way that arouses faith or interest, rather than taking a righteous stand and position in telling people through the thinking mind, through the views and opinions, through righteous views, what they should or shouldn't do. The same with adinadana, not to take things that have not been given. We all covet or envy or see things that we want, that we might take. But the precept to refrain from that, not to feel guilty about the feeling of wanting to steal something or take something that hasn't been given. With bhavana, with wisdom, then you're aware of it. But if you're a very righteous, morally righteous person, then you can feel you've sinned because you've coveted your neighbor's apples. Some people really lay a heavy trip on themselves in feeling guilty because they don't always think in the highest forms. And why is that? The thinking process its purpose is to discriminate. This is good, this is bad. Right and wrong, this is big, this is small. That's its function. So it divides, and it's a sankhara. So you can have ideals of unity and oneness and universal love. Those are, through thinking, you can create ideals of unconditioned universal love and peace and harmony. But then if you grasp that, then your life is, you're going to find out that life isn't like that. It's not about this high state of perfection that you can create with your thinking mind. It's not the best, but it's the way it is, the ordinary. Right now, how do you feel? Do you feel high or low or ordinary or whatever? It's like this. So this is observing. Puto knows Dhammo, the Buddha knows Dhamma. And the third precept for lay people, Kame Sumita, to refrain from misuse of obsessive, selfish sexual activities. To take responsibility for our for the sexuality of the body. And that takes sati sampajanya too, to reflect that this body we have is a sexual form. We're here because of that. And even enlightened people, even enlightened arahants still have the potential sexual drive, but known as it is conditioned phenomena arising, ceasing, not as the body's not self and the feelings are not self. So these energies, sexual energies, are they arise and they pass away. So when we see them from the personal view, then we get into righteous views about sexual behavior. But when we see it from panya level, from discernment, then we see it as just sankhara arising and not following it, not grasping it, and it ceases. So there's a knowing of the presence and absence, the birth and death of a sexual arousal is like this. The monastic form, the samana form, the celibate form, so that's our guideline to refrain from any intentional sexual activity. So that's the form we've chosen, the samana form. And we've asked that. We've asked to be ordained, you have to ask 3 times. You can't just ordain yourself. Then the fourth is right speech, is learning to, as I've said before, learning to use speech skillfully for communication, for encouragement, for information, in the right time, in the right place. So it's, reflect on who you're with, the time, the place you're in. And that takes sati sampajanya, doesn't it, to be aware of the atmosphere, the people you're talking to, and the situation you're in, for right speech. Then the last precept is about not taking intoxicants and addictive drugs. And many people find that one difficult. The third and the fifth precept are in Thailand are the most difficult. So, you're living in a culture where, drinking alcohol with dinner and things doesn't mean, people still consume alcohol and aren't alcoholics. But it's a guideline, not it doesn't mean you'll go to hell if you drink alcohol. These are suggestions, they're precepts, they're not commandments. They're not orders from above, saying, thou shalt not kill. I take the precept to refrain from intentionally killing any human being. So I'm just pointing out the difference between saying a commandment given from authority from above, a demand or a command, and the precepts within this tradition are asked for. They're not ordered or commanded, but they're taken and reflected upon. So you've got dana sila as a basis for a good life. Just as if you're not interested in bhavana or meditation, it will make one's lay life, ordinary life, at least a pleasant experience. If you keep the 5 precepts, you develop a sense of trust with your family. Trust you, your working place, the people you work with, respect and trust you. So many times, people aren't ready for bhavana or don't see the point of it, but it is important. Dana sila as a foundation for that. Then bhavana, meditation, cultivation of mindfulness. So this awareness, sati sampajanya, satipanya is bhavana, is real bhavana, is development, cultivating the path. Because the path is sati sampajanya panya. As we develop through our reflection on the Four Noble Truths, it leads to that insight through samaditi, samasangapo, the Eightfold Path. You begin to know this, that the path, the Eightfold Path is the simple reality of mindfulness and non-grasping of conditioned phenomena, mindfulness and wisdom. Now we all, no matter how successful we are in meditation, or how much insight we've had, we still experience vipaka kamma, so one still has memories of the past, and you don't become a kind of angel floating up in the clouds. And so, there's still this vipaka, or the resultant karma of being born and being conditioned and doing things out of ignorance, speaking out of ignorance. So we do the arising of vipaka karma in situations is seen in the path through sati sampajanya, sankhara. So one time somebody asked Luang Por if he still got angry, and he said, "Oh yeah, anger arises, but I don't grasp it." So that leaves a strong impression, of that even in a very wise, enlightened monk like Luang Por the vipaka of being human is still the anger, conditions for anger come together. This is what you feel. But the mindful being is aware of anger as for what it is. What is, if you feel angry right now, if you start thinking it's yours or somebody made you angry and they shouldn't have, and then you're getting caught up in thinking about it and grasping it and making it into a personal problem, or you're trying to get rid of it, you're trying to suppress it. But if you're just aware that it is what it is, it ceases. It's a sankhara. So then the refrain, sape sankhara anicca, sape Dhamma anatta, all conditions are impermanent. All Dhamma is reality, is not personal. To be non-personal is to be mindful. A personality can't be mindful. Like when you try to be someone who's mindful, you're not mindful. So I try to be mindful all the time, and then I told you the story about the umbrella. That was Sumedho trying to be mindful on Bindabat, and it got concentrated. That was the problem. I got so concentrated that I forgot all about the umbrella on the way back. So when it's a truism, isn't it? You should be mindful. I can say that everybody should be mindful. That's good. That's right. They should be. But this is the way it is. And so to say you should be mindful is still a thought, isn't it? It's still, you create that, I'm someone who should be mindful. Where if you're mindful, then you're aware of thinking that thought. If such a thought arises, the knowing it is what it is at this present time. Let it be what it is, and its nature is to cease. Now, dealing with guilt, there's a lot of, in the Western world, you don't find this such a big problem in Thailand or in Asian societies, but in the West, especially influenced by Judaism and Christianity, very righteous forms of teaching, and also, like here in Britain, it has high principles, high standards set for us. You know what a good woman is, a good man is, a good husband, a good wife, obedient children, how things should be. Things should be fair. We all want fairness and justice. We want to be respected and appreciated and not despised and rejected. I mean, but then life, as we experience it, isn't always fair, isn't always what we want, isn't always right. But even when it's not right and it's unfair, it's still the path of the Eightfold Path is still present here and now. Whether people respect you or don't respect you isn't necessary for the Eightfold Path. But if we create the personality, the Sakya Ditti, and grasp that, then we depend on being appreciated for a sense of stability and being recognized and being loved, and we become needy like that, needing something from outside affirming the sense of our self-worth. Where in awakened awareness, we don't need that to get that kind of appreciation externally. When it's offered, then it's appreciated, but it's not needed. And when you have very high principles and high standards and high moral values, those are, remember, they're high, they're perfect. But life is like this. It's not about high, it's about ordinary, it's about breathing and feeling and emotions that arise and cease. This is a constant experience of sensory impingement when a baby's born, from birth to death. It's being impinged on through the senses. It's being conditioned by the family, by the society. And when we're brought up with high standards and high principles, that's good, in terms of right and good. But it's not liberating, because we can become very guilt-ridden because we can't live up to these high principles or standards that we're attached to. So the people have obsessions with guilt, not feeling worthy or good enough or dirty or whatever, because they hold a standard of perfection that maybe they can't live up to. So people, I've noticed over the years how many people have guilt over, not that they've done anything that bad or anything all wrong, it's just that this sense of not being good enough, not being kind enough, not being aware enough. Now all this is seen in terms of sankhara, when we're cultivating the path of awareness, sati and panya. So guilt is not really an obstruction to the path, if you're willing to be the knower of guilt rather than the owner. So the feeling of I shouldn't have said that, or I did something in the past that's not very good. Wonder what kind of karmic result I'll have from that. The awareness knows that is just the self-creation, the thinking mind. It is sankhara. That's the way it is now. And when they arise, they're like this. And when they cease, then there's no sankhara. There's still awareness. There's still panya. So discernment is, I use this word for panya, for wisdom, but it's knowing sankharas. And wisdom, in this sense, panya, is not judgmental. It's not saying you haven't kept the 5 precepts, or there's some accountant up in the sky that's keeping track of how many precepts you've broken over the years. I mean, this is the thinking mind again, creating this as because you haven't always been absolutely perfect, then you've got to be punished for it in some way. This is what? Self-created. This is the thinking mind. And what is it that knows the thinking mind is the thinking mind? Is the sati sampatanya, satipanya. Now the metta bhavana, practice of loving kindness, it can be just the thinking of kind thoughts and goodwill for everybody, as the formula we use in the standard formula of reflections. And but that's still thinking, isn't it? That's still being attached to very generous, kind, forgiving wishes for all sentient beings. Well, that's beautiful. But in bhavana, it isn't through thinking, but through recognition of the path, that metta really, that there's real metta, loving kindness. Because the very nature of consciousness, pure consciousness, is kind. So you might call it unconditioned love in the English terms, or universal love. And what is love? That's a term that's used, for almost anything. It's a very popular word. Love songs and so forth, romance. And it's very, it creates a certain, when we talk about love, we feel a certain feeling arise in your mind. And so we say we love fish and chips. But that's not metta, is it? So it really means you like fish and chips and want to eat them. But then in Christianity they call it unconditioned love, or Christian love. And what is that? In terms of, it's an ideal, say this, the statement is high, isn't it? It's beautiful to feel this sense of love as the very foundation of life, as being all around us. Makes us feel inspired and happy to know that we're not in some cold-hearted survival of the fittest universe, as it might seem at times. But universal love, unconditioned love, or metta, in Buddhist terms, is a Pali word. And it's the foundation for bhavana. It's learning to accept things as they are. So sati sampatanya and panya operate. You can call it metta bhavana if you want. But it's like even the unpleasant conditions that arise in your consciousness, if you have metta toward them, doesn't mean you like them or pouring sweet phrases at them, but you are accepting them for what they are. There's no kind of judgment in it. It is like this. Feeling angry or feeling hatred is like this. Trust that awareness and that knowing it is the way it is. So that is cultivation. That is real bhavana. in this tradition too, there's a lot of, because it is an old one, there's a lot of opinions about it. And there's a strong sense of attainment in it. Like the attaining samadhi, attaining jhanas, attaining the 4 stages, attaining arahantship. This word attaining is a very common word that we use. To attain something, get something you don't have. Something you don't have that you can get hold of. But in bhavana, there's no attainment. It's merely letting go and non-attachment. You don't get anything new or attain any state you conceive of. You let go. Or you don't grasp. So it's the realization of non-grasping is like this. We still have to live within the forms that we're born into, the human body, as it gets old, gets sick and eventually dies. And these are all conditions that are on the, especially in my age, on the downhill, fading out side of the spectrum. When you're over 80, you're really aware of that, how old you are. When I was 70, I could still think I wasn't old. So right now, looking at you, I can't distinguish features very well anymore. I have this macular degeneration. And yesterday they gave me another injection. I take this syringe and the long needle and punch it into your eyeball. I've had this done 5 times now. And it sounds worse. Actually, it's not all that bad. So in these reflections, they're just a reflection on Dana Sila Bhavana this evening, or on bhavana, on meditation, on the path, on the Eightfold Path. And you think of it eightfold, and you have to do the first Noble Truth and the 3 aspects, and the second Noble Truth with the 3 aspects, and the third. It makes it sound all complicated, because that's the thinking process. You can only think one word at a moment. You can't think 4 Noble Truths in one moment. You got to think 4 Noble Truths in the first, second, third, fourth. You can't think 1 to 4 in one moment. And that's the limitation of the thinking process. Thinking gives us a sense of time, of past and future. So when we depend on describing and defining and thinking and rationalizing, we're in that realm of time automatically, unless we're aware. Thinking with awareness, then it's a useful tool, a convention that can be used skillfully, rather than just becoming victims of thinking habits or obsessive thoughts. So I hope this retreat hasn't made it seem more difficult or complicated, because really the path is ultimate simplicity. And and in order to realize that, to know that, we have to let go of the complications, which are the identities with the body, the conditioning that we've acquired through culture, through social, religious conditioning, through our attachment and reliance on rational thinking or thinking of any sort, through just reacting to the instincts, the survival, procreative instincts of the human form, and so forth. The animal conditions, we're mammals, we've got animals' bodies, so we're still, the procreation, raga danha, and patiga danha is, like anger is a kind of survival mechanism in the mammalian species. So after you recognize the path, realize the stream entry, there's still sexual desire and aversion, because these come with the species. They're not Sakya Ditti, Silabhata Baramasa, Vichikiccha anymore. They're not the first three fetters, but they're part of the nature of the species, the mammalian species. They still operate, but we're seeing them in terms of that they arise and cease. When they're present, they're like this. When and if we have this sati sampajanya, awareness, patient endurance, metta for them, then they cease. We're aware of their absence. So the aware being is aware of desire and non-desire. It discerns, it knows the difference. What does wisdom discern? It knows non-desire is like this. Desire is like this. And what is it that knows? We call it Bhutto, or is it just pure one universal knowing that is with us all the time, that isn't something we acquire or we need to get or anyone lacks. It's through bhavana that we begin to realize the way to not be deluded anymore, not create suffering, unnecessary suffering in our lives. So I offer this for your reflection.
Dhammayang Dhammavadagata Sadakarang Dhamma Se